There is a story we have been told since childhood, a narrative carved so deeply into our understanding of history that it feels as solid as stone itself. It is the story of the Great Pyramid of Giza, a monumental tomb constructed for the pharaoh Khufu some 4,500 years ago. Picture the scene under the relentless Egyptian sun, tens of thousands of dedicated workers, their muscles straining, dragging colossal blocks of limestone and granite up vast earthen ramps, using little more than ropes, levers, and copper chisels. For 20 years, this immense effort continued, a national project to create an eternal resting place for a god-king. The result was a flawless geometric mountain, sheathed in gleaming white casing stones, a beacon of power and piety, intended to launch a divine soul into the afterlife. This is the official story, a tale of ancient ingenuity and royal ego, a comforting and complete explanation found in every textbook and museum display. It is a story we have accepted without question, a chapter from humanity's past that we consider neatly closed. But what if this entire narrative, this foundational pillar of ancient history, is not just slightly inaccurate, but is a masterful work of fiction? The evidence for this traditional tale is surprisingly fragile, built not on contemporary records from the time of its construction, but on interpretations made by later cultures and the logical assumptions of modern archaeology. The pieces of this puzzle seem to fit, but only if we ignore the subtle, unsettling gaps between them. The story of the tomb is clean, logical, and satisfying. It tells us exactly what we want to hear about our ancestors' capabilities. Yet, the silent, imposing reality of the pyramid itself tells a different, far more mysterious story. It stands not as a confirmed answer, but as a profound question. What if the truth about this ancient wonder has been hiding in plain sight all along, obscured not by sand, but by the very story we crafted to explain it? To see it, we must first have the courage to let that familiar tale fade away, to unlearn what we think we know, and to listen to the quiet, persistent whispers emerging from the stone itself. For when we look past the official story, we begin to notice the anomalies, the features that make no sense for a simple tomb, the architectural secrets that suggest a purpose so advanced, so different, that its real story may have been erased from history entirely. If we set the traditional story aside and simply observe the Great Pyramid as an object, as a feat of pure engineering, its mysteries begin to multiply. This is not merely a large pile of rocks. It is a structure of almost impossible precision, a quality that seems bizarrely excessive for a simple tomb. Its base is a near-perfect square, with sides aligned to the 4 cardinal directions with an accuracy of within a fraction of a single degree. To achieve this alignment with true north using only primitive tools would be a staggering accomplishment even today. The stones themselves are not rough-hewn blocks. They are fitted together with such microscopic precision that a razor blade cannot be inserted between them, a technique that speaks of a lost art of stone cutting. Then there are the numbers hidden in its geometry. The ratio of its perimeter to its height equates to exactly 2 pi, a mathematical constant that shouldn't appear in a structure built thousands of years before pi was formally calculated. The golden ratio, a fundamental law of aesthetics and nature, is also encoded within its angles and dimensions. This is not random chance. This is a deliberate, sophisticated message, written in the universal language of mathematics. But the mysteries only deepen when we step inside, moving from the blinding sunlight into the cool, silent darkness of its interior passages. The journey inward feels less like an entrance to a tomb, and more like a descent into the intricate workings of a vast, silent machine. We come first to the so-called King's Chamber, a room built entirely from immense, polished blocks of granite. At its center sits a single object, a colossal sarcophagus, carved from a single block of the hardest stone. Yet, this coffin is stark and unadorned, unlike any other royal sarcophagus in Egypt, which were typically covered in intricate hieroglyphs and carvings. More puzzling still, this gigantic box is wider than the narrow passage leading into the chamber, meaning it must have been placed there during the pyramid's construction, before the chamber walls were even built. This defies all logical funerary practice. And inside this perfectly carved container, there was nothing. No mummy, no burial artifacts, no golden mask. It was found utterly empty, as if it had never been used, or as if its purpose was never intended for a body at all. Further down lies the Queen's Chamber, with its strange corbelled niche whose function remains a complete enigma. Was it for a statue? A ritual object? Its design is purposeful, yet its meaning is lost. And then there is the Grand Gallery, a breathtaking architectural marvel that serves no apparent practical purpose. It is a soaring, corbelled hallway that climbs at a sharp angle, a stunning display of engineering that leads to a single, small chamber. Why would a culture supposedly focused on efficiency and brute force go to such extravagant, complex lengths for a simple burial corridor? The entire structure is punctuated by narrow, mysterious shafts, once called air shafts, that align with specific stars, but their true function remains one of Egyptology's most enduring puzzles. Everywhere you look, the evidence points away from a mere tomb. The precision, the mathematical codes, the empty and prematurely placed sarcophagus, the functionally inexplicable galleries and shafts, they all whisper the same unsettling question. If this was not a tomb, then what immense, unthinkable purpose was this perfect, silent machine originally designed? The final, and most compelling, argument against the Great Pyramid's role as a tomb is the most obvious one. It lacks everything that defines an Egyptian royal burial. Walk through the verified tombs in the Valley of the Kings, and you are surrounded by a deafening narrative. The walls are a riot of colorful hieroglyphs, spells from the Book of the Dead, and depictions of gods and goddesses, all designed to guide the pharaoh's soul through the afterlife. These tombs were filled to the brim with golden treasures, furniture, jewelry, and provisions for the journey ahead. They were, in every sense, occupied. The Great Pyramid, by stark contrast, is a monument of profound silence. Not a single hieroglyph adorns its walls. Not one shred of a funerary text has ever been found within its confines. The majestic sarcophagus in the King's Chamber is not only empty, but its interior is rough and unfinished, as if the act of carving the outside was the only priority. This is not the final resting place of a god-king. It is an empty vessel, a scene devoid of any ceremony or life. This leaves us with the one piece of evidence that supposedly connects the pyramid to Pharaoh Khufu: the quarry marks, the graffiti found in the sealed relieving chambers above the King's Chamber. These crude, red ochre inscriptions mention Khufu's name and have been hailed as the definitive proof. But here, too, mystery clouds the water. These chambers were completely inaccessible, sealed off from the world for millennia. The discovery of this graffiti in the 19th century was genuine, yet its context is strangely ambiguous. Some researchers have pointed out that the script and the phrasing are atypical for the period, raising the controversial possibility that these marks could have been added during a later restoration, a practice known to have occurred in antiquity. Even if they are original, they do not state Khufu built this monument. They merely bear his name. Could it be that a later pharaoh, perhaps the historical Khufu, discovered this already ancient, incomprehensible structure and simply claimed it, adding his name to it as a form of royal appropriation, much like a conqueror placing his flag on a captured fortress? When we weigh the overwhelming silence, the absence of a body, of treasures, of texts, against this single, debatable scrawl of paint, the scales tip decisively. The tomb theory does not just have cracks, it collapses into dust. The greatest tomb on earth was never a tomb at all, and we are left standing before a silent, empty machine, its original architects and its true purpose lost to time. So, if this was not a tomb, what was it? Imagine the Giza Plateau not as a silent city of the dead, but as a vast, sophisticated power plant, humming with an energy we can now barely comprehend. This is not a metaphor, but a radical reimagining of the pyramid's function, one that begins with the very stones from which it is built. The Great Pyramid is constructed primarily from limestone, a stone rich with fossilized remains that contain tiny quartz crystals. Quartz is piezoelectric. It generates a subtle electrical charge when placed under mechanical pressure, and the immense weight of the pyramid's own structure creates a constant, crushing force. But the architects reserved a different material for the interior's heart: Granite. This igneous rock is packed with quartz crystals, between 40 and 60%, making it a far more powerful piezoelectric generator. The entire structure, therefore, was not just a static monument, but a dynamically charged mass, constantly converting the Earth's vibrations into electrical energy. This energy needed to be channeled and amplified. The pyramid's design suggests an intricate understanding of this process. Deep below the foundation lies a natural aquifer, a vast, flowing body of water. The pyramid, acting as a massive conductor, would have allowed this water's energy to rise upwards through its damp, limestone blocks, a phenomenon known as physioelectricity. At the very top, the pyramid was once capped by a pyramidion, likely sheathed in gold or electrum, both highly conductive metals. This created a perfect path for energy to flow, from the water-saturated ground, up through the piezoelectric stone, and discharging into the atmosphere from the golden peak. The internal chambers now take on a startling new purpose. The subterranean pit becomes an electrical ground, a stabilizing foundation. The Queen's Chamber, where residues of zinc chloride have been controversially identified, could have served as a chemical reactor. When hydrogen is produced in the presence of this salt, it creates a powerful reaction. This hydrogen gas would then rise into the Grand Gallery, a massive resonating chamber designed to amplify sound vibrations. These vibrations would travel into the King's Chamber, a room built entirely from granite, a perfect resonator. Here, surrounded by millions of quartz crystals, the sound waves would create a constant, powerful piezoelectric effect, generating an electromagnetic field. The so-called sarcophagus, positioned at the exact center of this field, may not have been a coffin at all, but a focal point, a reaction vessel for this incredible, unseen process. The pyramid transforms in our mind's eye from a silent tomb into a complex machine, a device for harnessing the very pulse of the planet. The genius of this machine lay in its ability to harness energies that are invisible to us, yet fundamental to the planet. Flowing deep within the Earth's crust are telluric currents, vast rivers of electrical energy generated by the planet's rotation and its molten core. The Giza Plateau was not a randomly chosen site. It sits atop a unique confluence of these subterranean power lines and massive limestone aquifers. Water, flowing through porous rock, creates an electrical current, and the pyramid, with its conductive materials, acted as a giant conduit to channel this energy upwards. But the true sophistication was in its amplification. The Grand Gallery, with its soaring, corbelled ceiling, was not merely a passageway. Its specific dimensions and complex shape suggest it was a giant acoustic resonator. If a specific frequency of sound was introduced within this chamber, perhaps from ritual chanting or a primitive tuning fork, the entire gallery would have vibrated in harmony, magnifying the sound waves tremendously. These amplified vibrations would then travel into the King's Chamber, mechanically stressing the quartz-rich granite walls and triggering a powerful piezoelectric effect. The pyramid didn't create energy from nothing. It acted as a lens, focusing the Earth's own latent power into a usable, concentrated form, transforming the planet's subtle hum into a tangible force. But if this power plant was once active, where is the evidence of its use? The answer may be that we have been looking for the wrong kind of evidence. We expect wires and control panels, but this technology likely operated on principles of resonance and wireless transmission, a concept famously explored millennia later by Nikola Tesla. The evidence is more subtle, hidden in absences and legends. Consider the mysterious lack of soot on the walls and ceilings of the interior chambers. If ancient workers spent years inside using torches or oil lamps to carve and decorate, their black residue would be permanently baked into the stone. Yet, the walls are clean. This suggests the pyramid's interior may have been illuminated by another means, perhaps by the cool, wireless light of electrical discharge. Ancient texts, like the Inventory Stela, claim the Sphinx and the pyramids existed before Khufu, guarding the knowledge of the Lord of Rostau, a subterranean, fiery realm. Modern experiments add a fascinating layer. Researchers have found that scale models of the Great Pyramid, placed in an energy, rich environment can concentrate electromagnetic energy in its internal chambers and base. The proof is not a single smoking gun, but a constellation of clues: the clean walls, the enigmatic texts, and the replicable physics that all point towards a structure that was not silent and empty, but one that once thrummed with a power we are only beginning to understand. Imagine a future where our civilization has faded, and a new culture emerges millennia from now. They wander through the silent, overgrown ruins of Manhattan, finding the rusted skeleton of the Brooklyn Bridge. With no understanding of steel or engineering, they might attribute its construction to their own legendary king, weaving a myth that it was a magical gateway to the heavens, built by giants or gods. This, perhaps, is the true story of dynastic Egypt and the Great Pyramid. The evidence suggests they did not build it, but inherited it, finding this impossible, weathered structure already ancient on the landscape. Awestruck and seeking to legitimize their own burgeoning kingdom, they did what any rising power would do. They claimed it. By attributing the pyramid to a pharaoh, Khufu, they performed a masterstroke of political propaganda. They wrapped their own identity around this indestructible monument, using it as the ultimate symbol of their divine right to rule. The pyramid became a foundational prop for their state religion, its true origin obscured behind a veil of royal decree and national myth. This appropriation required a new language of power, a system to encode their revised history. The development of hieroglyphic writing provided the perfect tool. It was not the language of the pyramid's builders, but a later invention that allowed the pharaohs to inscribe their own narrative directly onto the past. The absence of any contemporary records detailing the pyramid's construction is no longer a mystery, but evidence. The original builders likely utilized a form of record-keeping we can no longer comprehend, perhaps based on sound, geometry, or energies that left no physical trace. The pharaohs, unable to read this lost language of the stones, simply wrote their own story over the silence. They became the proud curators of a museum they could not understand, venerating the artifact while forgetting its function. They placed their names on its walls and buried their dead in its shadow, forever linking their legacy to a mystery they did not create. The greatest trick the pharaohs ever pulled was convincing the world they were the architects of a wonder that had already stood for ages, a timeless sentinel from a world before their own. The burning of the Library of Alexandria is often cited as one of history's greatest intellectual tragedies, a single cataclysmic fire that severed our connection to the ancient world. But what if that fire was merely the final, dramatic act in a much longer process of forgetting? The loss of that library was profound, but it housed the knowledge of the known world of its time, a world that already understood the pyramids only as tombs, a world that had already lost the original truth. The real erasure did not happen in a single blaze, but over centuries, a slow and deliberate process where a more advanced, incomprehensible technology was systematically recast as primitive ritual. The true library of the pyramid's builders was not a collection of scrolls, it was the Giza complex itself, an encoded landscape written in stone and earth, and we have been unable to read its language. Standing guard over this silent library is the Sphinx, and its weathered body tells a story that contradicts the official timeline. The monument's lion-like body is deeply scarred by vertical erosion patterns, the kind created not by wind and sand, but by thousands of years of heavy, torrential rainfall. Geology tells us that the last time such rains fell consistently on the Giza Plateau was at the end of the last ice age, over 12,000 years ago. This suggests the Sphinx is not a contemporary of the pharaohs, but a relic of a vastly older, pre-pharaonic civilization that thrived when the Sahara was a verdant grassland. Its head, disproportionately small and clearly recarved from a larger, more eroded piece of stone, hints at a later renovation. The original head may have been that of a lion, perfectly aligned with the constellation Leo as it appeared in the sky millennia before dynastic Egypt. The Sphinx and the pyramids were likely part of an integrated astronomical and geological machine, a message system whose code was broken when the culture that understood it vanished. The Sphinx's silence is not empty, it is filled with the echoes of a deluge that washed away its creators, leaving only their immense, enigmatic monuments behind as a riddle for their successors to ponder. What if the flame of this forbidden knowledge was never fully extinguished, but was instead carried through the ages by a secretive few? The trail begins not with historians, but with mystics and philosophers. The original priest-scientists who tended the pyramid's energy, if they survived the cataclysm that ended their age, would have become the first guardians of a shattered truth. Their legacy may have flowed into the mystery schools of ancient Greece, where initiates were taught sacred geometry and the hidden laws of the universe, principles that mirror the pyramid's own mathematical perfection. This esoteric river then runs underground through history, surfacing in the coded manuscripts of medieval alchemists. Their quest was not literally to turn lead into gold, but to achieve a spiritual transformation, a process they called the Great Work. Their philosopher's stone was a symbol for a latent, transcendent energy within matter and humanity, a stunning echo of the pyramid's proposed function as an energy transducer. The Kabbalists, with their tree of life, mapped similar pathways of divine energy descending into the material world. This hidden river of thought flows into the modern era, finding a home in the symbolic rituals and architecture of secret societies. Their compasses, squares, and all-seeing eyes are not mere decorations. They are fragments of a lost scientific language, a geometry of power. This raises a profound and unsettling possibility. Did these inner circles, these inheritors of the secret, truly understand the pyramid's purpose? And if so, why was this knowledge never released to the world? The answer may be as old as power itself. Knowledge is the ultimate currency, and a technology that could harness the planet's energy would dismantle every existing power structure. It was safer, for those who ruled, to let the world believe the pyramid was a tomb. A tomb is a relic, a power plant is a threat. By allowing the comforting lie to flourish, these secret keepers ensured that the most dangerous truth in human history remained buried not under sand, but under a story, guarded by symbols that the world had forgotten how to read. The story of the Great Pyramid feels too immense, too advanced, to be an isolated achievement. To find its origins, we must turn to the most enduring legend of a lost world, Atlantis. For centuries, Plato's account has been dismissed as a philosophical fable, a moral lesson about the hubris of nations. But what if his story, passed down from Egyptian priests to the Greek sage Solon, was not a myth, but a distorted memory of a historical catastrophe? Plato describes a formidable maritime power with technology and architecture far beyond their time, a civilization that wielded powers they ultimately could not control, and which sank beneath the waves in a single day and night of misfortune. This is not the description of a simple Bronze Age society. It is the portrait of a culture with a knowledge of energy and engineering that sounds eerily familiar. The Atlanteans, according to Plato, built with stones covered in a mysterious metallic coating, and constructed canals and harbors that formed concentric rings around a central citadel, a layout reflecting a deep understanding of sacred geometry and perhaps energy dynamics. Could the Great Pyramid be the ultimate surviving artifact of this lost world? Not a relic from the Atlantic Ocean, but a surviving outpost of a global, pre-Diluvian civilization that Plato's sources simply called Atlantis. The parallels are too striking to ignore. The pyramid's immense scale, its impossible precision, and its proposed function as an energy device align perfectly with the description of an advanced society that had mastered the forces of their planet. The cataclysm that drowned Atlantis, whether a cometary impact, a polar shift, or a massive crustal displacement, is the same catastrophic event that could have wiped this parent culture from the face of the earth, leaving only their most indestructible structures behind. The Giza Plateau, then, was not the heart of their empire, but perhaps a remote station, a vital node in a global network, built on a powerful geological site. It survived the rising waters and the shaking earth where other centers did not, a lone mountain peak above a sea of forgetting. The pyramid is not Egyptian, it is Atlantean, the last functional piece of a world that vanished, holding within its silent chambers the ghost of a technology we are only now beginning to reimagine. If the Great Pyramid is a lone sentinel from a lost world, then it should not be alone. and when we lift our eyes from the sands of Egypt and look across the globe, a startling pattern emerges, etched into the most remote and enduring landscapes. High in the Peruvian Andes, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman presents a puzzle of stone that feels hauntingly familiar. Here, colossal blocks, some weighing hundreds of tons, are fitted together in a complex, interlocking jigsaw of polygonal shapes. The joints between these gigantic stones are so precise that, like the casing stones of the Great Pyramid, not even a piece of paper can slide between them. This is not simple stacking. It is a sophisticated, earthquake-resistant technology that mirrors the foundational layers at Giza. Then, journey to the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon, to the podium of Baalbek. Here lie the famous trilithon, 3 stones each, weighing an estimated 800 tons, raised onto a wall 20 feet high. The scale defies conventional explanation, a display of megalithic ambition that rivals the grandest projects in Egypt. This architectural fingerprint appears even beneath the waves. Off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan, lie what many researchers argue are the submerged ruins of a vast, terraced complex, with sharp right angles, stepped platforms, and wide avenues, all carved from solid bedrock. Geologists debate whether it is natural or man-made, but the sheer geometric regularity suggests the hand of a master builder. From the polygonal walls of Ollantaytambo to the colossal stone spheres of Costa Rica, the same signature is written in stone across the continents. These are not the crude first attempts of fledgling cultures. They are the work of master engineers who shared a common, advanced understanding of stone, geometry, and seismic stability. They did not copy each other. They worked from the same forgotten blueprint. This was not a world of isolated tribes, but a planet dotted with the outposts of a single, unified parent culture, a global civilization that understood the Earth not as a collection of separate lands, but as a single, interconnected entity, which they mapped and harnessed with a knowledge we have since misplaced. Faced with this global tapestry of impossible ruins, we are left with the most profound question of all: who were the architects? The evidence points to a source of knowledge so advanced it borders on the magical, and 3 compelling, speculative paths open before us. The first is written in the stars. The ancient astronaut theory proposes that our planet was visited in the remote past by extraterrestrial beings. In this narrative, the Great Pyramid was not a tomb or a power plant, but a beacon, a landing site, or a communication device for these star-born visitors. The precision of its astronomy and the encoded mathematics are the user's manual for a technology we misidentify as stone. The gods of myth were not deities, but engineers, and humanity was their eager, if forgetful, apprentice. A second, equally staggering possibility is that the builders were not visitors, but us. This was a purely human civilization, but one that developed along a radically different trajectory. Perhaps they evolved not a technology of metals and machines, but a science of consciousness and resonance, a deep, intuitive understanding of the Earth's energy fields and the fabric of space-time. They were not primitive, but pre-scientific, achieving their marvels through a harmony with natural law that we have since lost. A third, even more mind-bending idea suggests they were the survivors of a cycle far older than we can conceive. What if human civilization is not a linear progression, but a spiral, rising and falling over hundreds of thousands of years? The builders of the pyramid may have been the heirs to a world already ancient, constructing their monuments upon the foundations of an even more forgotten predecessor, layering mystery upon mystery. The pyramid offers no definitive answer, standing as a silent arbiter between these visions of our past. It asks us to look into the abyss of time and decide for ourselves what we are capable of, and what, or who, might have come before. The true genius of the Giza complex may not be how it sits upon the earth, but how it mirrors the heavens with an accuracy that spans millennia. To understand this, we must first grasp the grand celestial clock known as precession. Our planet slowly wobbles on its axis like a spinning top, completing one full cycle every 26,000 years. This means the starfield visible from Earth, and the specific position of constellations, gradually shifts over vast epochs. When we apply this clock to the Giza Plateau, a stunning correlation emerges. The three main pyramids are arranged in a pattern that is not quite symmetrical. One is slightly offset. This layout is a perfect terrestrial reflection of the three stars that form Orion's belt. The Nile River, flowing to their east, mirrors the celestial river of the Milky Way. This is the Orion correlation theory, a map of the sky frozen in stone. But here lies the revolutionary twist. This celestial map was not designed to match the sky of 2500 BC, the era of the pharaohs. When we rewind the precessional clock, we find that the match between the pyramids and Orion's belt was not just close, but perfect, around 10,500 BC. At this remote date, the belt stars reached their lowest point in their precessional cycle, and the Giza layout captured this precise moment with breathtaking fidelity. This is not a coincidence, it is a deliberate timestamp. This date, 12,500 years ago, resonates deeply with Egyptian mythology itself, which speaks of Zep-Tepi, the first time, a golden age, when the gods descended to earth and established order from chaos. The Giza complex, therefore, is far more than an astronomical observatory. It is a permanent memorial, a monument built to commemorate a foundational event from a lost age, a specific point in the great cycle of time when the gods, or the builders, walked the earth. It is a message carved in continents and stars, telling us that our history is far older and far more profound than we have ever been taught. The celestial code is only one layer of the pyramid's hidden language. Woven directly into its very proportions is a more universal, more profound vocabulary, the language of mathematics. If you take the perimeter of the Great Pyramid's base and divide it by twice its original height, the result is 3.14159, the precise value of pi, a mathematical constant that defines the relationship between a circle's circumference and its diameter. This is not an approximation. It is encoded with stunning accuracy. Furthermore, the pyramid's dimensions also incorporate the golden ratio, known as phi, approximately 1.618, a number that appears throughout nature, from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower. The Fibonacci sequence, which generates this ratio, is also reflected in the pyramid's geometry. These are not separate features. They are interconnected expressions of a single, sophisticated understanding of the fundamental laws that govern our reality. Why would the builders go to such extraordinary lengths to embed these constants into their construction? The answer may be that they were not merely building a structure. They were creating a model of the world itself. The same ratio that defines pi in the pyramid's form also defines the relationship between the Earth's radius and its circumference. When scaled, the pyramid's height bears a relationship to its base that mirrors the dimensions of the northern hemisphere. It was, in effect, a scale model of our planet, a geodesic representation built to a precise ratio. This transforms the pyramid from a simple monument into a three-dimensional repository of advanced knowledge. It was a stone textbook, encoding the spherical nature of the Earth, the harmonic principles of mathematics, and the cyclical nature of time, long before these concepts were rediscovered by our modern science. The builders were not primitive stoneworkers. They were master geometers and philosophers, leaving behind not a record of their kings, but a testament to their understanding of the cosmos itself. A understanding so complete, it feels less like a discovery and more like a forgotten inheritance. This precise dating of the Giza complex to an era around 10,500 BC is not just an academic curiosity, it points directly toward a global cataclysm. Science has uncovered evidence of a devastating event that coincides almost exactly with this timeline, the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. Around 12,800 years ago, the Earth was emerging from the last ice age. Then, suddenly, the climate reversed, plunging the planet back into a brutal, 1,000-year winter. The trigger, according to a growing body of evidence, was a fragmented comet that entered the atmosphere and detonated in a series of massive airbursts over multiple continents. The evidence is etched into the geology of that time, a thin, dark layer in the soil, rich in platinum, iridium, and microscopic nanodiamonds materials, forged only in the intense pressure and heat of a cosmic impact. This event would have generated firestorms, triggered tsunamis of unimaginable scale, and thrown so much debris into the atmosphere that it blotted out the sun for generations. This is the catastrophic backdrop against which the Great Pyramid was likely conceived. It was not the proud achievement of a civilization on the rise, but the ultimate act of defiance by a culture staring into the abyss. The builders, possessing a profound understanding of astronomy, would have seen the threat coming. They knew their world was about to be shattered. Their response was not to build ships or store supplies, but to create something eternal. The pyramid was their ark, not for living creatures, but for knowledge. Its indestructible stone construction was designed to survive fire, flood, and ice. Its encoded mathematics, astronomy, and geodetic information were a blueprint, a seed meant to survive the winter and germinate in a future age. The pyramid is therefore a tombstone, not for a king, but for an entire world. It is the last will and testament of a lost civilization, a desperate message in a bottle cast into the stream of time, ensuring that even if they perished, their most profound understanding of the universe would not. If the pyramid was a machine for harnessing the Earth's energy, what was that energy ultimately for? The answer may lie not in the illumination of cities, but in the illumination of the human mind itself. Let us return to the King's Chamber, that stark room of granite resonators. Modern experiments have shown that the specific dimensions and materials of this chamber make it an incredibly powerful acoustic amplifier. Specific sound frequencies, perhaps generated by chanting or primitive instruments within the Grand Gallery, would have been focused and magnified within this space, creating a standing wave of vibration. Combine this with the chamber's naturally occurring electromagnetic field, generated by the piezoelectric properties of the quartz-rich granite under constant pressure, and you create a unique environment of sensory overload. The entire chamber would have been humming with energy, both audible and invisible, a crucible of resonant force. The human brain is an electrochemical organ, deeply susceptible to both sound and electromagnetic fields. Subjected to the intense, focused environment of the King's Chamber, the brain's normal operating frequency could have been dramatically altered. The combination of rhythmic vibration and electromagnetic stimulation is known to induce trance states, heighten suggestibility, and even trigger out-of-body experiences or profound mystical visions. In this light, the granite coffer was not a sarcophagus, but a focal point. An initiate lying within it would have been placed at the very epicenter of this field, experiencing a forced shift in consciousness. The pyramid, therefore, was not merely a power plant. It was a sophisticated technology for transcendence. It was a machine designed to open a doorway in the mind, to allow a human being to perceive layers of reality normally hidden from our senses. The gods that the pharaohs later claimed to communicate with may not have been external beings at all, but higher states of awareness accessed through this lost technology. The ultimate power the pyramid generated was not electrical, but neurological, offering a glimpse into the vast, untapped potential of human consciousness itself. The cataclysm that struck the Earth was an event of species-level trauma, and the fate of the pyramid's builders is the great, silent mystery at the heart of this story. The most straightforward possibility is that they were simply erased. The cometary impacts, the ensuing floods, and the 1,000-year winter that followed may have been too swift and too brutal for even their advanced knowledge to overcome. In this scenario, the Great Pyramid is their true tomb, a cenotaph for an entire civilization that perished, leaving behind only their most indestructible creation as a monument to their existence. Yet, the sudden and simultaneous flowering of complex societies in Sumer, the Indus Valley, and Egypt's Nile Valley, all possessing echoes of astronomical and architectural knowledge, suggests a different story, a diaspora. Scattered groups of survivors, the last master builders, may have wandered a shattered world, finding refuge among the emerging hunter-gatherer tribes. These survivors would have been like gods to the primitive peoples they encountered. They carried the shattered fragments of a world lost, knowledge of agriculture, astronomy, and the art of working stone. They could not rebuild their technology, for that required a global infrastructure, but they could seed the foundations of a new one. They became the culture heroes and gods of global myth beings like the Egyptian Osiris or the Sumerian Oannes, who were said to have taught humanity the arts of civilization. Over generations, their identity faded, their language was forgotten, and their profound science devolved into the rituals and religions of the new cultures they helped spawn. A third, more speculative, possibility is that a small, dedicated core of these builders survived in a protected enclave, perhaps in a remote mountain range or a hidden valley, guarding the core of their knowledge through the long, dark age, waiting for a time when humanity would once again be ready to receive it, leaving their structures as both a test and a beacon for a future they would never see. The isolated megalithic wonders we find across the globe were never meant to be alone. They were nodes in a vast, planetary circuit, a worldwide web of power that hummed with the energy of the Earth itself. The concept of ley lines, often dismissed as pseudoscience, may be the ghost of this forgotten grid, invisible pathways connecting sacred sites that sit atop powerful geomagnetic anomalies. The Great Pyramid at Giza, Angkor Wat in Cambodia, the Moai of Easter Island, the ancient complex of Machu Picchu. These were not separate religious centers, but integrated components of a single, sophisticated system. Each site was strategically placed on a nexus of the Earth's telluric currents, acting as an acupuncture point on the planet's body, designed to regulate and stabilize its energy flow. This global network served a purpose far beyond our current understanding. It was a technological ecosystem, a macro-engineering project on a planetary scale. The pyramids and other megaliths may have functioned as capacitors and transmitters, balancing the planet's electromagnetic field, potentially even moderating the climate by harmonizing atmospheric and geological forces. Communication across vast distances would not have required wires or radio waves, but could have been achieved through resonant frequencies sent through the Earth's crust itself, with the Great Pyramid acting as the central processor or master control tower for this entire system. The cataclysm that struck 12,000 years ago did not just destroy cities, it shattered this network. Key nodes were submerged, damaged, or fell into disuse, breaking the circuit. The sudden and dramatic climate shifts, increased seismic activity, and volcanic unrest that followed the Younger Dryas period may have been a direct result of this planetary system going offline. We are now living on a planet with a broken engine, surrounded by the silent, disconnected machinery of a lost world, unaware that these ancient stones were once the active components of a stable, harmonious, and globally connected civilization. If the evidence for a lost civilization is so compelling, why does it remain on the fringes of history, dismissed as fantasy by mainstream academia? The answer lies not in a shadowy conspiracy, but in the very architecture of modern knowledge itself. The field of Egyptology, like any established science, is built upon a foundation of accepted paradigms. The narrative of the pyramid as Pharaoh Khufu's tomb is the cornerstone of this foundation, a story taught in universities, published in textbooks, and defended by generations of respected scholars. To challenge it is not merely to present a new idea, it is to threaten an entire intellectual ecosystem. The peer review system, designed to ensure quality control, often functions as a gatekeeper, instinctively rejecting hypotheses that deviate too radically from the established norm. For a young academic, pursuing such a controversial path is professional suicide, a sure way to be denied tenure, funding, and publication in prestigious journals. This is not necessarily a deliberate act of suppression, but a systemic one, a form of institutional inertia that protects its own. Consider the fate of geologists who point to the water erosion on the Sphinx, or engineers who analyze the impossible precision of the stonework. They are often not engaged with on the merits of their evidence, but are instead labeled as pseudo-archaeologists, their credentials questioned, and their voices marginalized from serious conferences. The case of a respected scholar who dares to publicly entertain an alternative dating for the pyramids serves as a cautionary tale. They face not open debate, but quiet ostracism. The forbidden nature of this knowledge, therefore, is not enforced by a secret society burning books, but by a much more effective and impersonal force, the collective weight of established opinion. The fortress of conventional history is guarded not by soldiers, but by syllabi, by editorial boards, and by the quiet, unspoken agreement that some doors, once closed, should remain shut. The truth is not hidden, it is simply ignored, because to acknowledge it would require the painful and humbling process of dismantling a story we have told ourselves for centuries. The secrets of the pyramid did not vanish entirely. They went underground, transforming from a physical science into a spiritual and symbolic tradition. Consider the ancient art of alchemy. Its ultimate goal was never merely to turn lead into gold, but to achieve a spiritual transmutation, the refinement of the base human soul into a perfected, golden state. This process eerily mirrors the proposed function of the Great Pyramid, the transmutation of the Earth's base telluric energy into a refined, usable power. The alchemist's laboratory, with its vessels and processes, was a microcosmic representation of the pyramid's macrocosmic machinery. The philosopher's stone was not a literal rock, but a symbol for this lost technology, the elusive key to unlocking and mastering the hidden energies of the material world. This hidden river of knowledge flows directly into the symbology of Freemasonry. The Masonic tools are not merely carpenter's implements, they are geometric and philosophical instruments. The square and compass, when superimposed, create a pyramid-like form. The all-seeing eye, often depicted within a capstone, is a direct echo of the pyramid's missing apex, representing the enlightened consciousness, the ultimate goal of both the Masonic initiate and the pyramid's intended user. Their rituals are steeped in the symbolism of architecture and stone, a clear inheritance from the master builders of a forgotten age. These esoteric traditions are the cultural fossils of a lost science. They preserve the outer form, the symbols, and the ultimate goal of the pyramid's technology long after the practical knowledge of how to operate it had faded into legend. They became, in effect, a religion built around the ruins of a machine, their ceremonies a ghostly echo of an operating manual for a power they could no longer access, but never stopped seeking. For centuries, the proposed functions of the Great Pyramid seemed like pure fantasy, concepts belonging to the realm of magic, not mechanics. But a quiet revolution in modern physics is changing that, providing a new vocabulary that makes the impossible seem suddenly plausible. The principle of resonance, once a curiosity of sound, is now understood to be a fundamental force in the universe. From the resonant frequencies that shatter a wine glass to the quantum vibrations that define the state of subatomic particles, resonance is the key to transferring and amplifying energy. This is precisely the principle that seems to be engineered into the Grand Gallery and the King's Chamber, a structure designed to hum with a specific, powerful vibration. Similarly, the property of piezoelectricity, the ability of certain materials like quartz to generate an electric charge under pressure, was once an obscure laboratory phenomenon. Today, it is the bedrock of modern technology, found in every quartz watch, microphone, and sensor. The Great Pyramid, constructed from millions of tons of limestone and granite, both rich in quartz crystals, is essentially a massive piezoelectric generator, constantly stressed by its own immense weight. Even the most speculative frontier of physics, zero-point energy, hints at a deeper truth. This is the concept that the vacuum of empty space is not empty at all, but a seething foam of quantum energy fluctuations. While we are only beginning to grasp how to tap this energy, the pyramid's design as a device interacting with the fundamental fabric of the Earth and its atmosphere suggests its builders may have understood how to harness these background energies on a macro scale. We are not looking at magic, but at a sophisticated, holistic physics that understood the interconnectedness of matter, energy, and vibration, a science we are only now, with our fragmented and specialized approach, beginning to painstakingly rediscover. The story we tell ourselves about the past is a comforting one, a slow, linear ascent from primitive cave dwellers to the masters of the modern world. It begins with hunter-gatherers, transitions to simple farmers, and culminates in the first fledgling cities around the Fertile Crescent some 6,000 years ago. This narrative is clean, simple, and reassuring. But the Great Pyramid stands as a monumental contradiction to this tidy timeline. According to conventional history, this structure was built by a society that had only just invented writing and the wheel, a culture that should have been struggling with basic agriculture, not performing feats of engineering that would be nearly impossible today. The pyramid does not fit. It is an anomaly of such staggering proportions that it forces us to consider a far more dramatic and far more mysterious version of our own story. What if human history is not a straight line, but a cycle? The evidence points not to a slow climb, but to a precipitous fall, followed by a long, agonizing recovery. Imagine a timeline that stretches back not 6,000, but 12,000 years or more. In this forgotten epoch, a sophisticated global civilization developed, one that understood the secrets of the Earth's energy, that mapped the heavens with precision, and that built with a skill we can scarcely comprehend. This was humanity's first, and perhaps greatest, golden age. Then, catastrophe struck. The comet impacts of the Younger Dryas period, the floods, the fire and ice, shattered this world, plunging the planet into a long, dark winter. The survivors, scattered and traumatized, clung to fragments of their former knowledge. The pyramid at Giza and the other megalithic wonders were not the first proud achievements of a rising civilization, but the last desperate acts of a dying one. We are not the pinnacle of human achievement. We are the descendants of amnesiacs, slowly and painfully trying to reassemble the broken pieces of a legacy we no longer even recognize. Living as scavengers in the ruins of a world we have forgotten how to explain. If this revised history is true, it does more than rewrite our textbooks. It redefines the human condition itself. There is a pervasive feeling in the modern world, a deep-seated sense of alienation, a nagging intuition that something is fundamentally missing from our technologically advanced but spiritually arid existence. We build soaring skyscrapers, yet we feel ungrounded. We connect globally through digital networks, yet we feel profoundly disconnected. What if this existential unease is not a modern malady, but a racial memory? A subconscious echo of a time when humanity lived in harmony with the planet, not as its conqueror, but as a conscious participant in a living, energetic system. The universal myth of a fall from grace, of a lost golden age or a Garden of Eden from which we were cast out, may be the poetic, lingering trauma of that real, physical cataclysm. Our relentless drive to explore, to build, and to understand the cosmos itself can be seen in a new light. It is not merely the ambition of an ambitious ape. It is the unconscious yearning of a species trying to go home. Every rocket launch, every deep space probe, every attempt to unlock the secrets of quantum physics is an attempt to return to a level of understanding and connection we once possessed, but foolishly lost. The Great Pyramid, in this context, becomes the ultimate symbol of our forgotten self. It is not a relic of a foreign, alien culture, but a mirror held up to our own deepest potential. Its silent, imposing presence does not ask, "Who built us?" but rather, "What happened to you?" It reflects back an image of humanity that is capable of genius, of harmony with nature, of achieving a state of being we can now only glimpse in our most profound myths and our most desperate dreams. We are not searching for ancient astronauts. We are searching for our own reflection in the ruins of our past. The terrifying truth encoded within the Great Pyramid is not merely that a civilization fell, but that its destruction was part of a predictable, repeating cycle. The evidence is written in the ice cores and the geological record. Our planet is periodically subjected to cataclysmic events, from comet impacts to potential solar outbursts, that reset the board of life. The builders of the pyramid were not victims of a random accident. They were the survivors of previous cycles who had achieved a level of astronomical understanding sophisticated enough to predict the next one. The pyramid, therefore, is not just a relic of the last time's catastrophe. It is a monument built in grim anticipation of the time's next asterisk. Its indestructible nature is the core of its message. Civilization is an ephemeral flame, easily snuffed out by the cold winds of cosmic indifference. The mathematical and astronomical precision we have marveled at, the alignment with Orion's belt, the encoding of pi and precession, may be far more than a scientific legacy. It could be a calendar, a countdown clock built in stone, marking the rhythmic pulses of destruction that sweep through our solar system. The builders knew their time was ending, and they used their final moments not to save themselves, but to warn us. They created the one structure that could survive fire, ice, and flood, and within its geometry, they left a dire prediction and perhaps the key to survival. The ultimate question the pyramid poses is the most chilling of all. Did these master architects leave behind not just a warning, but a manual? Is the complex arrangement of chambers, shafts, and resonances not the blueprint for a machine, but the blueprint for enduring the next cataclysm, for rebuilding from the ashes? We have spent centuries staring at this structure, debating its function as a tomb, while its true purpose may have been to serve as a lifeboat for a future humanity, now staring down the barrel of its own potential collapse, both environmental and cosmic. The pyramid's silence is a scream across time. The cycle turns. Will you be ready? We have journeyed through the anomalies, the silenced histories, and the whispers of a lost world. Now, we must assemble the pieces. The tomb theory collapses under the weight of its own emptiness. No body, no artifacts, no funerary texts. The energy hypothesis rises to take its place, explaining the piezoelectric granite, the resonant chambers, and the harnessing of telluric currents. This was not an isolated invention, but part of a global blueprint, with sister sites from Peru to Lebanon, sharing the same impossible architecture, all connected across the Earth's energetic grid. The celestial code, frozen in the alignment of the pyramids with Orion's belt for the year 10,500 BC, is not a coincidence, but a precise timestamp, pointing to the era of the Younger Dryas cataclysm. This was the moment of fall. When these threads are woven together, they form a single, unbreakable cord. The unified theory is this: the Great Pyramid was the masterwork of a sophisticated global civilization that understood the cyclical nature of cosmic catastrophe. Seeing their own end on the horizon, they did not build for the present, but for the future. They constructed a machine that was everything at once: a power generator to demonstrate the principles of Earth energy, a consciousness-altering device to show the potential of the human mind, an astronomical observatory to map the precessional clock, and an indestructible time capsule designed to survive the fire and ice that they knew was coming. It was not a tomb for a king, but a seed vault for knowledge, a library in stone meant to germinate in the minds of a future species, us. It is a complete system, a single answer to the riddles of energy, consciousness, and time, left behind by the survivors of a previous age who hoped that their successors would be wise enough to understand the warning and the gift they had been given. The evidence for a radical reinterpretation of the Great Pyramid is compelling, a mosaic of data points that form a coherent, if shocking, picture. So why does the old narrative of the tomb persist with such tenacious force? The answer lies not in the stones of Egypt, but in the psychology of the human mind. To accept that the pyramid is a message from a lost, advanced civilization is to accept a series of profoundly unsettling truths. It means that our modern world, with all its technological pride, is not the pinnacle of human achievement, but a crude reconstruction after a fall. It means that cataclysm is not a myth, but a cyclical feature of our existence that could erase our cities and our history in a single, terrible day. It forces us to confront the utter fragility of civilization and the potential meaninglessness of our current trajectory in the face of cosmic indifference. This is a terrifying burden of knowledge. The story of the tomb, by contrast, is safe, comfortable, and flattering. It places us securely at the top of an evolutionary ladder, the proud heirs to a slow but steady ascent from primitivism. It allows us to feel superior to the past, to pat the ancients on the head for their admirable, if simple, efforts. To let go of this story is to step into an abyss of uncertainty, to admit that we are not the masters of the world, but merely the current tenants in a house that has seen many owners before, and will see many after we are gone. We have collectively, instinctively, chosen the comforting fiction over the terrifying revelation. The greatest barrier to uncovering our past is not a lack of clues, but a deep-seated, species-level fear of what we might find when we finally dare to look. We have preferred to see a tomb because a tomb is a closed chapter, while the truth is an open question mark hanging over the future of all we have built. Yet, To see only doom in this message is to misunderstand it completely. Buried within the terrifying truth is a single, powerful thread of hope, and it is woven from the very act of the pyramid's creation. Consider the mindset of the builders. They were not a people in denial. They saw the cataclysm coming. With their world collapsing into fire and ice, they could have descended into chaos, hoarding resources for a futile attempt at short-term survival. But they did not. They chose to pour their remaining energy, their finest knowledge, and their last great effort into a project that would not save them, but might save someone else. They built for a future they would never see. They believed in a tomorrow, and more importantly, they believed in times as asterisk. The pyramid is therefore the ultimate act of faith in the human spirit. This transforms the structure from a warning into a challenge. It is a symbol of our species' incredible resilience, a demonstration that even in the face of certain destruction, we are capable of transcendence. The pyramid does not whisper of our inevitable end. It shouts of our latent potential. It stands as a challenge to rise to the level of our ancestors, not in mimicry, but in spirit. It urges us to safeguard our planet with the same fervor they understood it, to preserve our knowledge against the fragility of digital clouds and brittle paper, and to strive for a harmony between technology and consciousness. The message is not that we are doomed to repeat their fall, but that we are empowered to avoid it. They passed the baton through the long night of time. The choice of what we do with it, whether we squander it on short-term conflicts or use it to build a legacy worthy of their sacrifice, is now, and has always been, ours. We began this journey with a simple, heretical question, and now we arrive at a profound and unsettling answer. The tomb theory has crumbled, unable to explain the precision, the emptiness, or the power inherent in the design. The energy hypothesis presents a compelling vision of a machine harmonizing with the Earth itself. We have seen the fingerprints of a global civilization and the scars of the cataclysm that erased it, a disaster they foresaw and encoded in celestial stone. The Great Pyramid, therefore, can no longer be viewed as a relic. It is a beacon. It is a lighthouse whose beam cuts not across ocean waves, but across the vast, dark ocean of time. Its message is not meant for the pharaohs, but for us. It is a permanent memorial to the fragility of human achievement, a stark reminder that every civilization believes itself to be eternal, right up until the moment it is not. This structure is a civilizational battery in the deepest sense. It was designed to store not electrical energy, but the very essence of knowledge, the principles of mathematics, the laws of astronomy, the secrets of the planet's energy, and the potential of human consciousness. It was built to be a seed, to endure the winter and sprout in a future spring. Its sheer endurance is the core of its communication. It tells us, in a language louder than words, that everything we build, everything we know, and everything we are, is temporary. History is not a solid wall, but a shifting sand dune, easily reshaped by time and catastrophe. Greatness is always followed by oblivion, unless that greatness is invested in creating something that can outlast the fall. The pyramid is not a question about the past. It is the answer to a question about the future that we have been too afraid to ask. It stands as a silent, permanent yes to the possibility of transcendence, and a permanent no to the arrogance of believing our current moment is the final, definitive chapter of the human story. Our linear view of history, a steady climb from caves to capitals, is a comforting illusion. The pyramid forces us to consider a more ancient and terrifying model. That time is a spiral, and human history moves not forward in a straight line, but in vast, repeating cycles of growth and ruin. This is the concept of the Great Year, a cosmic rhythm dictated by the slow procession of the equinoxes, where civilizations blossom at the spring and are harvested by the winter of fire and ice. The Great Pyramid is the ultimate artifact of this cycle. It is not an anomaly. It is the rule. It stands as a silent, unassailable witness to a previous turn of the wheel, a golden age that achieved heights we are only now reapproaching, before it was systematically dismantled by forces beyond its control. The nature of these cataclysms is such that they do not merely destroy cities. They erase memory. A global flood, a bombardment from space, or a shift in the Earth's crust does not just kill people. It drowns their stories, incinerates their records, and scatters the survivors into a new Stone Age. Within a handful of generations, the world before becomes a myth, a hazy dream of gods and giants. The survivors, our ancestors, would have looked upon the indestructible megaliths of their predecessors with a mixture of awe and terror, attributing them to gods or legendary kings. They would have built their own humble settlements in the shadows of these incomprehensible ruins, their true purpose and origin already fading into the stuff of legend. We are likely not the first technological civilization to walk this planet. We are simply the latest to have forgotten the lessons of the last cycle, staring at the evidence without recognizing it as our own potential future, a future that may be hurtling toward us with the same inevitability as it did for the builders of the pyramid. The true purpose of the Great Pyramid, therefore, transcends any single function. It was not merely a power plant, a temple, or an observatory. It was a message, crafted with the only language guaranteed to survive the death of its speakers and the silence of their tongue, the universal language of mathematics, astronomy, and enduring stone. Its builders used their final breaths to shout across 12,000 years, not to boast of their greatness, but to impart a sobering, crucial lesson about the nature of civilization itself. They encoded the cyclical nature of time, the principles of energy that bind the cosmos, and the fragility of human achievement into a single, indestructible structure. It is a scream of warning, frozen in geometric perfection. This means the forbidden knowledge we have sought is not a spell for power or a map to hidden treasure. It is something far more valuable and far more terrifying. The truth. The truth that civilizations can fall, that progress is not inevitable, and that the greatest threat to humanity is our own short-sightedness and arrogance. The pyramid is a plea from the past, urging us to lift our eyes from the petty conflicts of the day and to see the larger pattern, the spiral of time that is turning once more. It asks us to become the generation that finally listens, that preserves our knowledge against all odds, that safeguards our planet, and that proves the builder's faith in our future was not misplaced. The pyramid's final secret is not hidden in a hidden chamber. It is hidden in plain sight. It was built for you. The beacon has been lit for millennia. The only question that remains is whether we, in our pride and noise, have the wisdom to finally see its light and the courage to heed its silent, screaming warning.